Final game at Wasatch for the girls soccer team. We talked to a handful of the team following a big-time win. Also, what is Brent Martindale seeing from the various fall sports teams over here at Wasatch? We chat about that here tonight. It's a brand new episode of The Scoreboard, and it's all coming up right now. Hey everyone, welcome into The Scoreboard. We have quite the show for you as we watch the Wasps take care of business and catch up with some of the other fall teams. When we come back, it is a nail-biter in Heber that closed off senior night with a bang. Let me paint a picture for you. You're headed into overtime. It's the final minutes of your time playing in Heber as a Wasp, and a handful of players decide to step up to the occasion. Brent Martindale talks to some of the Wasatch soccer players following their 6th win in 7 games.
Hey, we're with Tara Lundberg, the new head coach here at Wasatch High School, the girls soccer team. Coach, thank you so much for taking a minute. Pleasure meeting you, and congratulations on a big win over Provo tonight.
Yeah, thanks. It was a big win. It was senior night, and we really wanted it bad, so thank you. It was a good
The girls
win.
seemed really prepared. Let's talk about, maybe your preparations over this. You guys are on a roll. I mean, this is 6-1, I believe, over the last 7. What are your preparations for a team like Provo? They did not die. Yeah. And what was it like preparing for this game?
Yeah. Well, we had a really hard preseason. We played some really tough teams, and I kept telling the girls, keep working. It will serve us well when we get to region, and here we are with a good winning streak going on. We did lose to Maple Mountain, but tonight, we played Provo before, and we knew kind of how they played. We knew they pinched in the middle, so we worked really hard on playing wide, and we knew what we were up against, and so those were the kind of things we were working on.
And Provo did not go away. It's just like they just kept coming back, but you guys withstood it. So that is an important win. It puts you guys, I believe, in 2nd with a really big game with Springfield coming up. Do you have the girls looking? I mean, it's probably just this game first, then Springfield, right? How are you in the preparations?
Yeah, we definitely try to take one game at a time. So we really prepared for Maple Mountain. We knew exactly what we were doing. Then we came into Spanish Fork. We knew we were going into their home turf. And then we had Provo. We knew what type of play that their formation and play that they did. And now we go into Springville. It's their home field. They have a very short field. It's a very hard field to play on. They're super feisty. So we know it's going to be a tough game.
And they're going to be after you, aren't they?
For sure, because we beat them in the rain, and they probably don't think that should have been the result of that game. And they're doing very well in region as well.
Yes. Yes. Let's talk about this game specifically. What were some highlights and maybe some things to work on?
Yeah, I mean, the first 5 minutes, I thought we were going to roll with this game. We scored in the first 3 minutes, I think. We had great possession. We were doing really well. We were kind of breaking them down in the first 10 minutes, and then we got in a little bit of a lull and let Provo hang around, and we can't do that. And we talked to them about at halftime that they can't let a team like this hang around, and that's what they did. And I would have never thought this game was going into overtime. There we are, and I told the girls, you better dig deep.
It kind of gave Provo a little confidence, didn't it? It's like that happened. Okay, so overtime, Cicely Clark with a big goal. And I know it's never just one player for sure, but maybe walk through that with us. I had her walk through it. Tell us a little bit how that all went.
Yeah, I mean, I told them at halftime, I told them at the end of the game, we're knocking, just keep going, we're going to get one. And she just got in behind that defense, and luckily she was composed and put it in the corner.
And a sophomore, what amazing. Let's talk about your seniors. Kind of sad. Maybe you'll host a game. There's that potential still, I believe. But if not, last night having them here at the stadium, what's it going to be like losing those seniors?
It's going to be huge. They are a really special bunch. They're all leaders on this team. They are confident. They're composed. They start and contribute to every single game. All the girls look up to them. You can see all of our other players crying after this game. They're going to be tough ones to lose for sure. They're special kids.
Hey, we're with Cicely Clark. The big goal at the end in overtime to win the big win over Provo, Wasatch High School. Cicely, thanks for taking a minute. We'll talk about your goal in just a minute. But the game, this was an important game, and Provo was a pretty good team. What do you think how the game went?
I think at the beginning we had a lot of good momentum. We had a lot of good opportunities. We struggled towards the end of the first half and then a little bit in the first half of the second half. But then we got back in the groove, and then in overtime, then we just connected and got the goal.
Give a little credit to Provo. They would not go away. Credit them. Next up is a really important Springville game. What do you guys – I know it's hard to look past this game, but I know you guys probably looking a little bit. What do you think about the Springfield matchup?
I think, as you said, it's a really important game. If we win, I think we'll be second in region, I believe, and that would put us in a good place for the state tournament. So it's a pretty big game. When we played them the first time, we got the win, but we can't come in too cocky, so we just got to keep playing good.
And they're going to be after you, aren't you? So, aren't they? And that was my next question, the state tournament coming. Again, hard to look forward that far, but you guys, again, on a roll. You're 6-1, I believe we said. It's got to give you some confidence with these girls, right?
Yeah, going into the state tournament, we're hoping to get a good matchup so then we can just see what happens. And as we're on this little streak, hopefully we can keep it up and go pretty far in state.
Well, let's talk about now your big moment. The big goal, just minutes into the overtime. Tell me a little bit about what you were doing, what you were thinking, and how it kind of came to be.
Well, when the keeper drop kicked it, I saw our striker, and I started making the run over, hoping she would head it. And I think she did, or she got the defender out of position, which just left it wide open for me. I had to take a big touch, and then right before the keeper got, I just had to tap it over.
What a great memory. You'll never forget that, will you? Last question here. This is senior night. Maybe you'll have another game here if you guys host. If not, what's it going to be like missing those seniors?
It's going to be sad. We'll miss a few of our good outside backs and one of our really strong defensive midfielders. But we have some good underclassmen coming in, but we're definitely going to miss them, and it's super sad tonight.
Hey, we're with Gracie Gardner with Wasatch High School girls soccer. A big, big victory tonight over Provo. Gracie, thanks for taking a minute. What's it like? It's a senior night. Is that sad for you, or are you excited? What's this like tonight?
I'm so excited, but it was fun. It's good.
We'll talk about the game here in just a minute. But thinking of it, there's a possibility you guys could host, and so you may have another home game. But if not, this is your last home game. What's that feel like?
It's crazy. It's crazy it's here. But it's fun.
You guys seem to have a great camaraderie with your team. What's it like playing with these girls, not just the seniors, but the other girls?
I love the girls. They're so fun to play with. You have a really good connection.
So let's talk about the game. A big win over Provo. They were feisty, weren't they? It's like you kept thinking, you're just going to put them away, but they just kept coming back. Tell me about the game just a little bit.
It was crazy. Back and forth. We scored first, then it went down, and then they scored. But we scored in overtime. It was good.
So the overtime, is that scary? Is that a scary thing, or were you guys just fired up for that overtime?
I think we were fired up for it. We were ready.
So what's next? You think Wasatch and the potential for state? You guys are on a roll. I believe you're like 6-1 in your last 7 games. What's the prospects of the state tournament?
I think we can go far if we play together as a team.
Okay, Gracie Gardner, thanks for taking a minute. Wasatch High School, big win tonight over Provo.
Hey everyone, right now we have a very special guest. We actually have Brent Martindale, who does a whole ton of field reporting for us here on the Scoreboard, but he also spends a lot of time at Wasatch High School as a play-by-play announcer as well as covering various sports. So Brent, thank you so much for joining us today.
As always, a pleasure.
We appreciate it so much. We just kind of want to kick things off. We want to get into some of the sports, and then we'll get to football in just a little bit. There's volleyball going on. There's soccer that's coming to a close. There's a plethora of different sports going on here during the fall season. How has some of these sports been doing?
Well, starting off with a couple of different ones. I know tennis is wrapping up their season, as we know, all that. Wasatch kind of in the middle of the hunt, a really, really tough Region 9. And that'll be a constant theme, by the way, for this discussion, is the tough Region 9 in every sport. Tennis, the girls are, they have young players these last couple of years that they've been able to come through and really get a lot done. And that this year, some of that coming to fruition for them. So I believe we're doing something with them here in a week or so. Volleyball struggling a little bit with Wasatch, but they, got some great kids, and they're, one in particular, I was talking to you a little bit earlier about there. They do have a new one. Chloe Papinga is just tearing it up. She's their leader in kills, doing great. Anna Zollinger playing kind of both, playing two positions. She's a hitter and a setter in what they call a 6-2 offense. And they just have some great hardworking kids. So it's a tough region. There's 3 teams in that region that are in the top 10 in the state. And Wasatch has to play them every night, it seems like. So, and then cross country is, they've got some great kids, and again, it's a great competition. Blake, I don't know if you've ever been to one of those meets. They are so crazy fun. You just wouldn't think it, and it's hard to watch a little bit, but people at these cross country meets, they'll run all over the place where the runners are running. It's crazy. And I was there one time with the camera and running, and it's like, holy smokes, I'm not in shape like a cross country runner, but it's just fun to watch. And that state tournaments or state meet is coming up real soon as well. So, that's kind of how it goes. Football seems to dominate most of the news, but the other sports plugging along as normal.
Yeah, I believe there's actually a senior night. We're filming this on Tuesday, and so I know that there's senior night tonight for the girls soccer team. They've had a really solid closing half to their season. The beginning of the season, they had lost a fair share of their games, but I believe just last week when I talked to them, they had won 4 of their last 5 games. And so
that's a perfect way to describe it. Yeah. Second half really strong. And I talked to a couple of the girls the other day, and they were sad about what you were talking about, that first half, how they struggled a little bit, but they're really happy with how they're coming on.
Yeah, I talked to a couple of their senior captains, and they said specifically that the camaraderie on the team, the coaching staff, it just seems a little bit different. The culture on this team is that they're continuing to build and get stronger as a team every single week, and it's been really, really fun for them. They've really enjoyed it. So as they close out this season, it's going to be very interesting to see how they end up, what their final record is, and see some of these top players. And also, they're a younger team. There's not a whole lot of senior leadership on this team, but there's a lot of players who are coming up in the ranks, and they're continuing to get better every single day.
And one other factor with them, they've been through basically 3 coaches in the last 4 years, I believe. So, just that type of thing is always kind of tough to go through with players. So
it's been absolutely wild, but let's jump over a little bit to the football season. You do the play-by-play for Sting TV. We love having you do that. We also have had you do a handful of post-game interviews for us for the Wasps over the season. How has this season been? I think it's more of that recurring theme of Region 9 being difficult, but nonetheless, these Wasps are playing pretty well.
It is. It's hard to tell. I mean, for example, we'll talk about the Friday night's game more a little bit later, but they played Springville, and they played every inch with them and scared them to death at the end. And if it weren't for a couple of inopportune turnovers, they would have felt really strong and beating. Well, Springville, guess what? This morning, RPI #1 in the state, and so that is the theme. Like we said, it's just Region 9 is tough. So the main thing with them is I just spoke with Coach Coburn just a few minutes ago, and interestingly, the RPI has changed this last year on the parameters. So the idea is, before it used to be who you played against, their record, and what division they were in. You could get more points if you played against them, and what their record is, and against what record teams they play. It used to be a little more complicated. Well, they kind of trimmed that down, and now it's only your record and your opponent's record, which is still pretty strong. And so Coach Coburn's philosophy the last couple seasons has been to play a really, really tough preseason against 6A schools bigger than their own. And yes, it's paid off with the kids and made them tough and great learning situations. But this year it's hurt them just a little bit with the record, and thus it's hurt them with the RPI. And now they're in danger of even making postseason. So it is interesting. That RPI is an interesting conundrum.
Yeah, I believe I was talking to Braden Byer over here at Park City High School after a game. He said that only 10 teams are going to make it into the playoffs this year, which is a much different format than what we've had in the past. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about the Springville game. Can you talk us through those last couple of minutes of the game? Because I know they were very key for the Wasatch Wasps, and a couple of things just kind of blundered, and the win just kind of got away from them. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, it's like you can play some mediocre teams and have 3 turnovers and possibly beat them, but you cannot have 3 turnovers against the number 1 team in the state and expect to beat them. And even so, they still had a chance at the end. I mean, they still, like I say, apparently the crowd and the players were stunned a little bit. The Springville thinking we've got to just eliminate this Wasatch team, but they still didn't. It still scared them to death, but still a sound win for Springville. And yeah, just tough. You just can't talk about that game, the ending, without talking about turnovers. So
yeah, the final score of that game being 40-48. We talked to Crew Erickson, and he said that they needed to play a pretty much perfect game in order to come away with the win last Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can go for a region championship. I think that should be the goal, and I think that we can go out and win those games. We got to play perfect in every aspect, I think so.
And they were pretty much perfect up until the closing minutes of that game. And so, this team is young. The defensive line isn't what it used to be. And there's going to be a couple of years of development before they are back to the top of 5A. And so I think that this team has a lot of room to grow. And there's a lot of young talent that is going to continue to grow and get better as the seasons go on. Who are some of those younger talented players, Brent, that you've seen that you're really looking forward to for the future for the Wasps?
Well, you can't do it without talking first about sophomore Matt Kelson. I mean, let's look a little bit at his resume. He's a sophomore, never started a varsity game before this season, and I believe never played in a varsity game. And here he is. I mean, on Max Prep's stats this morning, he is second in the nation in yards, total yards, 2,133 yards. And that's crazy. I mean, we'll talk about Crew Erickson also in a minute, who's also leading in yards receiving. But, the other young players, I think you have to look at Josh Davis, great. They have several juniors that are really contributing as well. You're talking about a tough team next year on both sides of the ball if they're able to continue to develop targets for Matt Kelson in the future.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big thing this next year is the targets. Who is going to fill the role of Crew Erickson? Another young talented player, I think, as well is Adarius Edwards. He's had quite the season so far on the defensive side of the ball. But this team is just full of young, talented players that are going to get so much better in the upcoming years. You said you wanted to talk about Crew a little bit. He is leading the country in receiving yards. And so you think to yourself, well, you've got the #1 receiver in the nation. You've got the #2 quarterback in terms of passing yards in the nation. What's going on? Why is this team 3-4? And so there are a couple of things in this team that do lack. Part of it is youth. Part of it is positionally. Part of it is just the lack of reps that this team has so far. I'm curious what you think of that.
Yeah, exactly. It's the idea is offense is never a problem. They're scoring, 40 points a game or more. I mean, even against Springville, not many teams have scored as much as Wasatch has done against #1 team in the state. But yeah, unfortunately, just a little bit of, like you mentioned, youth, and they're not losing games by blowouts either. They're just having some unfortunate little miscues at key times. And you take away a couple of those games, in fact, you want to say that the biggest loss they had was really against Park City early on. Park City was losing going in at halftime and then just completely turned around, made adjustments, and Wasatch couldn't catch up. That was a great game for them to put a meter on them. Since then, they've just been really well. I mean, they could really have a really strong record. They could potentially be 5-2 instead of 3-4 by just a couple of marginal things. Again, maybe some of that is, like you mentioned, the youth. Some of that might be just a couple of holes in the defense. And then a couple that could be just a really, really tough schedule against 6A teams. That's kind of the summary of it right there, is their 6A challenges have just unfortunately gone a little against their scheduling this year, but it has done and has paid off in the areas that they've really wanted to in terms of teaching and growing.
Yeah, I think that's going to be my last question here, Brent, as we wrap up, is this team is going to be around for a lot longer. This isn't just the one-off team. This isn't the team that's full of seniors that's supposed to win every single game, and they've had some very close games. Their record, if they were to able to just close out a couple of these games, would be a lot better. It would be 5-2. And so you've got to wonder what this team is going to look like in a couple of years. What do you think the ceiling is going to be, Brent, in a season or maybe 2 seasons from now?
That's a great question, because and to answer that, sorry, excuse me, let's take a step back a year. Wasatch had a couple of pretty good players, 3 really good players that were, you don't want to call them transfers, but it kind of seems like that, in the Kalama brothers. And then I just drew a blank on the quarterback's name that played last year. And so the Kalama brothers, one of them graduated, and then one transferred, and then the quarterback transferred. And I mean, they went to big schools, and they're doing well at Skyridge and Timpview. And so you would have thought maybe coming in, and those guys were main contributors. They were heavy on, very similar to what the team has now. They left, and Wasatch, I think, was kind of expected to really take a dive without them. But this is the point, is I believe what's happened at Wasatch is they have developed an amazing offense that teams are scared to death to play. Their no huddle quick offense is just causing problems everywhere, and that's why they're doing it. And the reason I bring that up is because that's one of the big reasons why they could be really formidable in the next couple of years, along with the youth that you mentioned, a quarterback coming back for 2 more seasons, and great young talent, great young defense. You're talking about, those are the main reasons why they could be pretty good.
Well, we absolutely cannot wait for the close of this season and for the years to come with this incredible program. Brent, I'm sure you'll be along for the ride the entire way. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for all your additional work you do for us here at the Scoreboard. We're going to be right back here after a commercial break. Thank you so much for watching. On Friday, we're going to talk to South Summit Girls Soccer on their senior night. For Brent Martindale, I'm Blake O'Rourke, and we will see you all on Tuesday.